Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. You ever notice on the piano how sometimes it just seems easier to play something like the C major scale, right? Where you're just going to stay on all the white keys and go up and down the scale. And when you try to translate that scale to the guitar, and where you're crossing over strings and you're memorizing scale patterns and fingerings, we're not really familiar with what the formula is that we're using to make up that major scale. And the major scale is so important. That's where all of the main ingredients and foundational pieces are coming from in Western music. So I wanted to take some time in this micro lesson to share with you what that magical formula is to make up the major scale. Let's go ahead and grab a guitar and we'll get started. So for this exercise, we're going to just stay on one string. And the reason for that is so you can see the formula better. But also, sometimes when you play on one string, to me it just has more of a vocal quality in your playing. So learning the major scale this way will hopefully add to your existing lead playing. So the formula is very simple. It's whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And every time we say whole step, we obviously mean 2 frets away or a fret in between the notes. And a half step is just 1 fret. So let's look at the C major scale with this formula. And we'll start on C on the B string with our first finger on the first fret. So we'll do the formula. Starting with C, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And as you can see, this is a very simple formula that you can get down. And the beauty of this is it works on every string and in any key. So let's try the same scale, the C major scale, but now starting on the C on the A string. Same formula. C, then whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And again, this also works in any key. So let's try the key of G. That's another common key people play in. So let's try the open G string. And we'll pretend that this nut is a fret, which it kind of is. And we'll do open, G, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Let's try the low E string. Same thing, same process. Starting on G, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. And when you practice this, practice it in both directions. And practice it with different fingers as well. And I would encourage you to practice this also in the keys that you play the most commonly in at first, but of course it's great to learn it in all the keys as well. So that's really what's powerful about this formula. Now, to get more mileage out of your practice, after you get comfortable with doing the formula, do 2 things. The first one is replace the formula with the names of the notes. And why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this so you can learn all of the notes on the fretboard. It just helps you lock things in better and on every string. So again, let's take our C major, but we'll start on the G string this time. And the formula again was whole step, half step, whole step, half step. But now I'm going to go through it and say the names of the notes. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And go backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. And for bonus points, the second thing that you can do is you can actually sing the notes. And this helps so much with ear training. Oh boy, that was high. Let's take it down an octave. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that in itself is a valuable exercise, not only to get familiar with all the notes on the fretboard, but to know what they sound like and to practice, again, your ear training, especially understanding the sounds between the different intervals that you're playing within the scale itself. So here's a little secret for you. We kind of went the long way round on this. And I did that for a reason. It's important to know the formula. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. But if you notice what's happening there, the majority of the scale is made up of whole steps, and there's really only 2 half steps happening. So another way to memorize this pattern is to understand where the half steps fall. And sometimes this is easier to see on a piano, like I mentioned in the intro, where on the C major scale, you can see there's no black notes between 2 of the pitches, and that's between the E and F, which is the 3rd and the 4th degree of the scale, and between B and C, which is the 7th and 8th degree of the scale. And again, we were using C as kind of our reference, but that applies to any major scale. So always between the 3rd degree and the 4th degree, there will always be a half step. And between the 7th degree and the 8th degree, or the octave, there will always be a half step. So again, let's look at maybe the G major scale with that same idea, right? So we know we can safely play whole steps until we get to the 3rd. To go to the 4th, we can do a half step, and then when we go to the 7th to the octave, we have to do a half step. Well, there's my 3rd degree going to the 4th, half step. There's my 7th degree. It's a half step now to get to that octave. So that's another little way to kind of memorize this, is always between the 3rd and the 4th there's a half step, and between the 7th and the 8th there's a half step. But I would memorize and practice this scale both ways, well, all those ways. One which is doing the whole formula, the other one is saying the notes so you can get familiar with the fretboard, the other one is singing those notes so you can get familiar with what those pitches sound like and do the ear training, and the third one is to understand that every time you play the 3rd to the 4th and the 7th to the 8th degree in the scale, that you're only going to use a half step. Well, that's another micro lesson down. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. I've been looking at my analytics lately, and I can tell that people are dropping off before they even get to this end scene, so I really do appreciate you sticking it out. And while you're here, if you don't mind, and if you found any value in this video, I really am trying to grow the channel. Would you do me another favor by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell? All those things really do help me out, and I'm so grateful for your support. As always, I wish you a wonderful day.